and welcome back to part 4 of Detention. In today's part we're going to finally explore Ray's personal life outside of school. What took place back at home in our interesting adventure. Worth mentioning, depending on what you have the radio set to will depend on what scenery you're in, which is why the camera zooms right in onto the radio so you can't see the surrounding area. When you see a red light come up on the side, you're on a radio channel, which then the atmosphere of the room changed, which will change the location of where you are. We're now back in Ray's home, where we can look around and explore. She has a cute little piggy bank, a ceramic piggy bank, big round eyes wanting to be fed. To be fair, the music does a really good way of just setting a nice atmosphere here. Someone's home. And this was her home life. I feel like Mum's always been a traditional house. She doesn't even complain when we were wronged. I really don't like that. There's no way to go into the past anymore. Back then, besides the New Year's, Dad never drunk at home. I miss those days where he had bad jokes and stories to tell. Remember this room, because it's part of a puzzle we need to solve later on. You see the eyes flash at you. Pictures of Mum, Dad and I. The eyes have been rubbed off. Oh, it just says the same thing depending on which one you click on. But you can see like it's slight flickers and flashes that there's something behind it, which should hint to you to turn the light off so you can see this. Right, the picture on the left and the picture on the right are both times on a clock. But it's not as simple as looking at it as face value. The picture on the left is tilted and the picture on the right is upside down. So flip it so it's facing the right way in your head and work out what the time is in that sense. You also get a filled up glass cup as well that we'll keep for later on. So make a note of the time it says, which I still have my note somewhere around here. As this starts to happen, you start to get a bit of an idea of what really took place. People running away. This one's a lot more obvious than the last one, but it was an abusive relationship, among other things. I can't find a note on me, but it's fine. I'll find it when I get to it. You'll just probably see a slight cut. But let's advance the radio to the next alteration. Oh, there it is. This time, the room is flipped upside down. And the piggy bank has been smashed, which should be your hint that later on there'll be a way to put something in the piggy bank, flip the room, and then get something from the smashed alternate. But that'll be for a little later on. For now, let's progress and explore the upside down, the flipped room. When you go through, you'll be seeing a bunch of doors. You have to advance through them in a set sequence. But as you can see by the footprints here, they kind of just fade away, so you can't really tell. So what you need to do is firstly turn off the light, and if you remember that cup we took from the luminescent liquid, put that in the puddle. Because if you try, you have to put it in when the light's on, and because Ray can't see it, and then go and turn the light off. My bad. Trying to do things one slight step ahead than the last. Ugh. Oh, wrong button. There we go. If you put this in the puddle, it'll change the colour of it, but it'll make it so the footprints will light up so we know what doors to progress through. As you can see, it's door 3. I believe it's door 3, door 4, door 5, door 1, door 3. I believe is a sequence. So it's door 3, door 4, door 5, then I believe it's 1, then 3 again. There's 1, and then 3. You could probably work it out by just keep on trying, but there's no indication you're in a new room other than the footprints, so you're not gonna know unless you just go along with it. There's a note on the floor. Ad for private investigator. Husband cheating? Come home late? We specialise in tracking people. It's like an ad for a firm. And there's your hint that there was suspicion, at least, that Ray's father was a cheat. He was not loyal. Back then, laying in bed, I could hear Mum and Dad. There's such a bond back then. I don't know when their idle chatter turned into deafening silence. Later, Dad would only come home when he got roaring drunk. Mum always huddled into the corner trying to hide her tears. Yeah, wasn't friendly at all. And here's the clocks I was on about, so let me just dig up my notes. Give me a minute. Right. Unfortunately, you can't control the stick separate. You just got to keep on spinning it until it's the right way. But the first one is 1:45, and that one is 1 o'clock, and it should fill in the middle. And I think you have to turn the light off again, don't you? Oh no, it changes the room back here, further emphasizing, yeah, the dad was a cheat. Ray's father was not loyal at all, which probably did not help. He was an alcoholic. Well, he became an alcoholic. He was abusive and a cheat. So Ray's home life was just as crap as her school life, really. Well, arguably worse, because no one wants to return home to that kind of household, that kind of family. And this door at the end, I believe, has no purpose for us just yet, but it will later on. Well, I'll investigate around, but I think this room we have to wait for later on. Teacher's desk. There are plenty of assignment papers. And there's nothing right at the end. No, okay. And you can only walk in here, so we have to slowly mooch back. Yeah, there's nothing of interest in here, I don't think. Oh well, moving on. So I believe when we head back we'll be able to get access to one more room layout, because there is a third one. You're just not allowed to go into it straight away. You have to solve enough of the first two rooms, and then it will let you advance into it. Also, every time you go back through, you don't have to do the 5 rooms. It will always take you just straight through, skip, so don't worry about it. Alright, let's go back to the first, because I don't think we've got our third one yet. No, we don't. Okay, let's go back to the first. Where is it? Oh, there we go. It's a little precise, but it's not too bad. It's probably a lot easier on the PC version, you know, what this was built for, because I think the console counterparts came later on, because I accidentally bopped my mic. Hope that didn't go through too loud. Let's investigate. Oh right, yeah, okay, we are supposed to go here once you solve this, because now we can access this door and go into a more bizarre location of the game. Because there's a secret room in the house, but it's not a literal secret room. It's more like a secret that Ray takes home with her, which I thought was a cool way of handling it, that she has a secret that she takes home with her and she doesn't tell anyone. I received your paper plane. I was truly worried you were still having trouble at home, but it looks like my concern was slightly unfounded. Like the white daffodil, you are innocent, vain, and candid in nature. Perched aside a pond in Snow White, admiring your reflection. Being different from others can be a tough way to live, but I think I can understand that feeling. You said you want to learn more about my time abroad. All I can say right now, that's my past is rather complicated. Unfortunately, many horrible things have happened on this land in the last decade. Believe it or not, our society wasn't always like this, oppressive and cold. Perhaps we should take a stroll down the boulevard on the weekend. There are things our censored textbooks don't mention, but are definitely worth knowing. Can we take the paper plane? Yes, we can, because that's important for later on. I don't think there's anything else of interest in this room, so let's leave. Ugh. I kind of preferred it when they weren't straight and they had a red light on them. But there's now this. As a journal, radio station. This is the game's way of telling you you've now got access to the 3rd radio station. So we've had upside up, we've had upside down, or the flipped station. So let's enter our 3rd and final. Way over on 103. It's sideways. Well, select things are sideways. It's more that stuff's all over the place. Stuff that was in the middle of the room stays in the middle, but stuff on the edges are on the walls. This puzzle, you need to pay attention to what the light is when it's off. If it's off and the shadow walks the same way as you, you continue. If it walks against you, you leave it on. So like that, because it's a figure in the shadow, that's not us. So just follow it along, and if it turns against you, change it. If it doesn't turn against you, you can leave it. When the door at the end is lit up, you know you've done it. But advancing through, we have another environment. It's her father's study room. I drew this when I was little. It was always kept, even when we moved the furniture around. There's a drawing on the wall. It's kind of hard to tell of the graphical design of this game, but it is there. A coin. We'll keep a hold of that for our piggy bank. Because I believe as we advance, we'll reach this dead end. I mean, this is a ticket booth, and we don't have a ticket yet, so we cannot advance. But that's another thing that is kind of hard to take on in a ticket. Like, a lot of Ray's background, it's like, ooh, okay. So she has a really dodgy background. There's a lot of implication theorizing that I talked about last part, but ignoring her family, what happens in that room when we get to it is yet another thing. But let's return the radio back. Where is it? Oh, I keep missing it. Listen, on the PC, I'm sure that'd be a lot easier to do with the mouse, but on the console, doing that with the controller is a bit annoying. But let's put this through. The coin's in the piggy bank. And although right now it seems to give us nothing, if we return to the flipped dimension, where is it? Oh, there it is. It's smashed on the ground and we can get our ticket. The movie ticket. Or film ticket if you're British. Like me. So let's return to 103 and find out what there is to show in the theatre. And you may have noticed, and I'll make mention of it, we haven't encountered any enemies in this act. The big guys we encountered in Act 2 are the last encounters of any kind of threat you get in the game, and yeah. Isn't this a very different environment to where we just was? With fish everywhere and our ticket booth a lot more colourful. Oh, wrong button again. Good day and welcome, we hope you enjoy the movie. Right. This part. Ray, in some form or another, begun a relationship with her counsellor. Which, yeah. Ray is supposed to be like 15, 16, I think. Maybe 17 if you really want to push it, and her counsellor's like supposed to be in his 30s and 40s. Yeah. That one was one of those things where I had to kind of... And I saw it, I was like, okay. Ooh. I struggled to take it on the chin a bit personally when I first saw it. I was like, okay, sure. So that's like strike 3. She betrayed her classmates, had a poor relationship and then had a relationship with her counsellor. And eventually the police decided to take it upon themselves, and there was a search warrant where they took her father away. And by the looks of it, it was a very aggressive take. They didn't stand around and ask him to come. They just came in and barged in and took what they needed to. Right, now where's we supposed to go next? Is this door open yet and back in the opening? If not, we can just save at least, since it's been a little while. Door's locked. Okay, no. Alright, let's see if I can work it out where we're supposed to go again. I don't think there's anything here. I'm trying to think where we're supposed to go. No, I'll just probably cut until I find something. God damn it, I was right next to it. But there's an assignment book right here that you need to keep a hold of. On its own, it doesn't seem to do anything. A reasonable excuse to enter the counselling office. So let's take our item and return to the counselling office, which was the room that previously didn't seem to have a function at the end of the flipped dimension, the flipped radio station. And all these creepy needles hanging from the ceiling. Ugh. So as we return, we get more fish and a much more unsettling scenery, with red streaks going across the branches, and the fish slowly decaying and dying, like its innocence was broken down very quickly. The teacher's desk. There are plenty of assignment papers. I think if we give it the assignment, yep, if stuff starts to come to life, we'll probably get more talking. Miss Fang. The counselling process is near its end. I'm glad you're back on track, and hopefully won't be needing me anytime soon. If there isn't anything else, you should return to class now. I still have plenty of assignments to look at. And just like that, she was dropped as well. It seems. It's over. No matter what's been written on here, there is only farewell. So she was probably tricked and manipulated significantly by her counsellor as well, to an extent. At least that's what I took from it. Either that, or the counsellor was close to being caught with what he was doing, and so decided to cut it off then and there, and Ray unfortunately was just the victim of the circumstance. But when we return back, the radio's off and we can progress onwards. That, by the way, does wrap up Act 3. Like I said, Act 3 is nowhere near as puzzling per se as the first two acts, but now we start to approach the finale of the game. We can interact with set pieces of the environment. We're supposed to keep on clicking on a glitched out shadow almost of ourselves, as there's nothing left in this room that's under a curtain show. I was supposed to give her something. The 3 artifacts we've collected throughout the course of the game were what we will now be using. A glass cup of nauseating colour, overflowing with the stench of human corruption. Plates and cup clash against the walls as father's voice roared through the halls. After a series of curses seething, all that's left was mother's weeping. A family was once sweet together, healthy and caring when we gathered. And now, every night a restless sleep, every morning hard to wake. So it goes on day by day, the anguish digs ever deep. I was shattered into countless pieces, mirroring the crumbling of a familiar world, in a state of ceaseless decay, plunging into the river of despair, floating in limbo for the rest of our days. As someone who's partially dyslexic, this is hard. This is hard to read. I'm leaning right into the screen now, you have no idea, just to make sure I say this right. Next is Dependent. Anticipating when we meet, footsteps ever quick and slight, roaming through a neon forest, strolling past the dazzling lights. I've become a little lark, brushing past the pretty flowers, chasing all the playful butterflies, I glide merrily by your side. I've been an actor in our play, long before the curtain's risen, being held as ever comforting, longing for your love embracing, listening to your many whispers, feeling each other's tranquil breathing. The white deer walked into my grasp. What a pleasant surprise, what a turn of fate, I want to keep this moment in my palm for eternity. That one was hard. I stuttered a couple times there, you might have noticed. But finally, the document. All of a sudden, we stopped meeting. You became distant bitterly, colder than the sun could melt, air around you freezing instantly, and my frozen body's beating heart with each pulse tearing itself apart. Again, I'm left in abject solitude, in a house that I call home, in a space that I call school, a walking corpse whose mind without a sense of loss that's drowned with doubt. That's not easy. You try reading that out loud, it's not as easy as it looks. So I've also got to keep up with it because it advances by itself, it doesn't advance when I press it. Chang Ming Hu, we need to talk about this. Miss Yin, it's not necessary to raise your voice like that. Why can't I? What were you thinking, going after a child like that? Child? I was already studying abroad at her age. She's old enough to know what she wants. So what now? Will you lead her down this forbidden path? She only needs a push in the right direction, not for you to wrap your arms around her. This is our private matter, it's none of your business. How is it not? You're stuck in your little romance, did you forget about us? We were already in the same boat, don't you forget. So others caught on as well. Which is probably why Chang, the supervisor, the counsellor, cut off the relationship shortly because he knew people were onto him. As many eyes watched on of their disgraceful actions. I'm guessing the hands represent his regret of wanting to continue anyway but having to not. There's a lot of symbolism in this game. If you take something differently, go for it, but I'm just saying how I take it all. To be fair, that could be Ray's action, further reflecting from Act 2 the idea of the death of what happened surrounding her actions. Many lives were lost, probably including her counsellor. Oh, the counsellor who the gun was aimed at the end. The policeman shot the counsellor, but everyone else was caught in the crossfire. My soul is shattered into pieces. When I cannot put myself back together and forget everything, I open my eyes and welcome a barren world. I know I missed that first line, but I wanted to finish my point really bad. And now we truthfully enter Act 4, the final act of the game. The game just calls it the epilogue. But there are choices in this act that we'll go into further in the next part that, depending on what you take, will dictate your ending. Whether you'll find some answers or whether you'll be left with the questions. As we return back to where it all started. I'll let the atmosphere encompass this for a while. You'll notice we're partially transparent now. We're almost spiritual, as if we don't exist anymore. It's implied from the roof jump at the end of Act 2 that Ray is dead. But it's whether she accepts the stuff now in her afterlife, and this is her shadow that we'll have a fruitful encounter with next time on Detention. But until then, you guys take care now.